Hey there, before we get to today's video, I would just like to send a quick shout out to my most loyal subscriber, my bestie, you know who you are. This woman sent me a message last night letting me know that the video I posted last night didn't go through very well, or didn't come out very well. So this is attempt number 2. Enjoy. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is actually inspired by the fact that my husband and I, before we moved to Canada, had our own place in Illinois. Now, it was actually our very first apartment together, and a lot of things had to go into figuring out, okay, is this going to be the best place for us? Especially with me being disabled, there were just a lot of factors that I personally had to think about. And I want to go over what those factors are with you guys today. Now, obviously, all the factors that I've come up with are specifically for myself, and some of them may not apply to you guys. Some of them might be a little different for you guys, but hopefully the things that I came up with will help inspire you guys to make up your own list. And I'm totally okay with you guys using my ideas and incorporating them into what you guys look for in your own apartments. So the first tip that I can give you guys, and one of the first things you want to look for when finding an apartment, is what is the transportation like nearby? Because for me specifically, again, all of these tips are going to be specific to me, but again, I'm hoping that they'll eventually help you guys as well. First thing for me was finding transportation, because I don't drive. And having my husband drive me back and forth everywhere was not always an option. So I had to make sure when we were looking at apartments that if he wasn't around, if he wasn't available, would I be able to get where I needed to go when I needed to get there? Now, lucky for me, there was plenty of transportation available where we were living at the time. And even where I'm living now in Canada, there's transportation available, but I'm speaking specifically about my husband's and my first apartment. So there were buses and trains nearby. And of course, you can always find the bus, you can always find your local bus station and the schedule and the train schedules online. They're always available online. So I found that very easily. In fact, there was even an app for me to use to find all that information as well. So that was a bonus for me. The biggest thing for Dan and I when we first moved into our apartment was that we noticed the handicap accessibility parking was being misused. We quickly fixed that within, I want to say, 2 months of us living there. So I would, number one, encourage y'all to make sure, if you need it, that handicap parking is available near or within your building, because believe me, it is going to be a lot easier, especially depending on the apartment you get, to have an accessible parking space nearby. For us, we ended up having parking within our building. So it was included near our building. Unfortunately, like I said before, it was not enforced. The handicap parking, sorry, was not enforced. We ended up having to write an email to the building saying, hey, people are parking in the handicap parking and they don't have placards. They don't need them. We were actually the only ones in the building that ended up needing the parking spaces. And the reason for those parking spaces and needing them to be accessible is the fact that, especially with our apartment, the parking was on a slope, but the parking space that was accessible was on the top. So it was easy to just get right into the building. And not all the other spots were that easy and that accessible. So having those spots and advocating for yourself for those spots is important, and I highly recommend it. Another thing that I looked into when Dan and I were first looking for our first apartment was what else is in the neighborhood, including was there a supermarket nearby? Now, for Dan and I, it was kind of funny because the supermarket that we ended up going to all the time wasn't necessarily what I would consider accessible and close by because Dan always had to drive me. However, I did look into it later on just in case, and the supermarket that we went to was close to a bus station. And, sometimes you're going to have to do that. So I would also recommend when you're going on those bus trips, take reusable shopping bags with you because you're going to need them. So always make sure that, especially if you want to be able to eat healthy, not saying we always did, but just saying, if you want to at least try to eat healthy and try to make your own meals, make sure that there is a supermarket nearby or that you can actually get to a supermarket so that you can be free to do your shopping and cooking for yourself. Now, of course, once you are able to get to the building, are you able to get in? Do you have stairs? Are you unable to use stairs? Are you able to use stairs? Those are definitely things to look into as well. For me, our apartment, the building was level and we were able to just go right in and go into the building. But, you know, find out if the apartment has stairs. Find out if you can get in with an accessible entrance. These are all things you definitely want to look into as well. Our biggest issue when we first moved into this apartment was the fact that we were living on the second floor and the elevator wasn't the greatest. So I highly recommend that if you move into a building that has more than one floor, ask the management when was the last time that your elevator was serviced and how often is it serviced? Because that is something that they definitely need to keep an eye on and need to continue looking into constantly. Otherwise, as a wheelchair user or as somebody who's not able to walk up and down the stairs easily, you're going to have a heck of a time getting around in the building like I did. Thankfully, later on, in the 3 years that we lived in this apartment, I was able to advocate for us for a first floor apartment, and I always recommend that first and foremost. However, every once in a while, you're gonna come to, uh, a time when you're not gonna be able to get that first floor apartment. We didn't have a first floor apartment available at the time, so I believe it was a year after we moved in, a friend of ours in the building was actually moving out, and she was living on the first floor, so we were actually able to snag her apartment before anyone else could find out about it. So, it was really great for us, really easy for us. But like I said, always ask the building management about first floor apartments, and if that's not available, ask them, "Are the elevators maintenanced regularly?" Because that is gonna help you out a lot. And then, of course, there's always the apartment itself, your personal apartment. Are you able to get around in it? Is there enough space for you to move around and not knock into things, not knock things over? Are you able to reach everything that you need to be able to reach in this apartment? Are you able to get access to the kitchen counters, the cabinets, the shelving? All of these things are things you're going to want to look into when you're looking into your first apartment. Is the bathroom accessible? Is it wide enough in the bathroom that you can get your chair into it? Or your crutches, whatever you use. I personally didn't have that issue because I can walk. So I was able to walk around in my apartment. I did use my wheelchair quite often in the apartment, and then walk when I needed to because some of the spaces were not wheelchair accessible, but it was still a great first apartment. So I really hope that those of you who are looking for your very first apartment find this helpful. And I would love it if you guys have any questions or suggestions for other people. Feel free to leave those down in the comments. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Bye!